In the opening scene of our story, we are introduced to Bryan, a former government agent. He finds himself in an electronics store, browsing for a special gift for his daughter Kim's 17th birthday. Bryan arrives at a lavish estate, which belongs to his ex-wife Lenore and her wealthy husband Stuart. Lenore shows little appreciation for Bryan's gift. Kim initially seems thrilled with her father's thoughtful gesture. However, her attention quickly shifts to a grand horse gifted by her stepfather Stuart. In the following scene, we find Bryan at home, alone in his studio. Three old friends show up on his doorstep. During their gathering, Sam, one of his friends, presents Bryan with an opportunity to make some fast money by working security for a female pop singer's upcoming performance. Bryan decides to pursue it. He approaches the popular pop star Shira, seeking guidance on how to encourage his daughter's musical aspirations. Shira, upon hearing this, advises Bryan to steer his daughter away from a music career. A crowd of enthusiastic fans bursts through the concert's security measures. Bryan and Shira attempt to make their way out. However, they are attacked by a knife-wielding assailant. Bryan swiftly subdues the attacker and protects Shira. In gratitude, Shira promises to connect Bryan's daughter with a voice coach and a manager. Excited about Shira's generous offer, Bryan plans to inform Kim. However, his excitement is short-lived when Lenore shows up during their lunch meeting. Bryan was merely invited to sign the parental consent paperwork. Kim needs to go to Paris with her friend Amanda. Bryan hesitates to accept. Kim reassures him, stating she will be staying with Amanda's cousin. Bryan agrees to think about it, but Kim interprets it as a no and becomes angry at him. Lenore scolds Bryan for being overly cautious, asserting that their daughter deserves a full childhood. The following day, Bryan shows up at Stuart's mansion with the signed consent form, a prepaid international cell phone, and some conditions. He insists that Kim must call him upon landing, and that she must call him every night to provide him with the address and phone number of her accommodation. In Paris, Kim and Amanda meet a kind local man named Peter. Peter recommends they split the fare and share a cab to the city. Amanda agrees, and Peter takes a photo of them using Kim's phone. Peter makes a short phone call, providing information about the two girls, stating they are around 18 years old. Upstairs, Amanda informs Kim that her cousins are in Spain. Meanwhile, back in the States, Bryan tries to contact Kim, but Amanda has turned up the music so loud that neither of the girls can hear the phone ring. Determined to reach his daughter, Bryan persists and finally manages to capture Kim's attention. As Kim answers the phone, she moves to the opposite side of the loft. While having a conversation, she witnesses two men are dragging Amanda out of sight as she kicks and struggles. Kim reveals it to Bryan. He instructs Kim to hide beneath the bed. He asks her a series of leading questions and tells her to gather as much information as possible. Kim explains that she, Amanda, and a man named Peter were all passengers in the cab. She has seen 3 or 4 men kidnap Amanda. Bryan instructs Kim to yell out a description of the kidnappers and keep her phone on. Bryan asks Kim to face the phone towards the men so he can listen on their conversation. Kim is relieved that the 2 men have left the room. However, her relief is short-lived as she is abruptly seized from beneath the bed. She follows her father's orders and yells, "Beard, moon and star tattoo on the right hand." Bryan listens as Kim screams for a few more seconds, followed by a moment of silence, and then heavy breathing. In a tense exchange, Bryan tells the kidnapper that he won't pursue him if Kim is released immediately. However, if the man doesn't comply, Bryan threatens to go after him. The kidnapper, with a heavy accent, responds defiantly. Bryan contacts Sam, providing him with the recorded conversation. Bryan rushes to Stuart's mansion and reveals that he needs a private aircraft to travel to Paris. Bryan thoroughly examines Kim's belongings and searches for any possible clue. Sam provides Bryan with an in-depth report, identifying the language spoken in the recording as Albanian. He informs Bryan that the Albanians abduct females for prostitution and warns him that he has only 96 hours to find Kim before she's gone forever. In Paris, Bryan carefully examines Kim's cell phone. He finds a picture taken by Peter in the airport's photo booth. He enlarges a portion of the image, revealing what appears to be a reflection of Peter. Bryan recalls Peter's conversation with a Swedish blonde at the airport about sharing a taxi. Bryan finds and confronts Peter. However, Peter's large partner attacks him. As Bryan struggles, Peter manages to escape. Bryan kills Peter's sidekick and steals a taxi to pursue Peter. Bryan abandons the cab and continues chasing Peter on foot. As Peter runs into traffic, he makes a daring leap from an overpass, seemingly landing safely. Peter is hit and killed by a truck. Bryan reaches out to an old friend named Jean-Claude. He agrees to help Bryan, revealing the whereabouts of the Albanians. Jean-Claude also sets up surveillance to track Bryan's movements. Bryan hires an Albanian translator and instructs the translator to wait inside the car. Bryan encounters a prostitute and pretends to negotiate with her pimp. When the pimp approaches, Bryan unleashes his skills, overpowering the man and extracting valuable information. Bryan discreetly plants a bug on the pimp for further surveillance. Back in the car, Bryan plays the recording for the translator. They listen to the conversation between two Albanians, discussing issues with the equipment at a nearby construction site. Bryan heads to the construction site, where he finds a large group of men waiting in line. He joins the line, paying the doorman and receiving a piece of paper with a single numeral on it. Inside the trailer, a series of makeshift rooms have been created with ropes and blankets. In one of the rooms, Bryan spots a sedated woman on a cot, but she is not Kim. However, she motions for him to come closer. Bryan pushes aside the covers, hoping to find someone else. Unfortunately, his intrusion causes a commotion among the paying customers. The bouncers confront Bryan, but he continues his search. Bryan discovers a woman with Kim's hairstyle and the jacket she was wearing. He rushes in, only to realize that it's not Kim. Bryan tries to interrogate the woman, but she is unable to speak due to the drugs. As a group of irate men closes in on him, he carries the drugged woman to a nearby jeep, hot wires the ignition, and drives away to safety. Bryan takes the woman to a small motel. He administers an ultra-rapid detox to the woman, using a drip and injecting her with Narcan. Bryan also informs Jean-Claude that he won't meet him until Kim is safely recovered. A team of men, led by Jean-Claude, storms onto a rooftop, tracking the location of Bryan's phone call. They discover a mobile phone equipped with a walkie-talkie. Bryan is on a different adjacent roof. The woman regains consciousness and informs Bryan that she stole the jacket from another captive. Her only clue is that the abduction took place near Rue Paradise and a house with red doors. Bryan locates the residence with the red entrance doors. He enters. Inside, he encounters a group of men who swiftly drag him into a kitchen. At the table sits 4 men. They all introduce themselves as Marco. Bryan informs them that their previous contact has been reassigned, and he himself, posing as Jean-Claude, will now handle their payments. After negotiations, an agreement is reached. Bryan believes he has identified the person from Kim's phone, but before leaving, he hands the leader a message in Albanian, asking him to interpret it. He questions the leader, saying, "You don't remember me, do you? I told you I was going to find you." The real Marco responds with a chilling reply. The next moment, Bryan finds himself in a furious battle, fighting against a house full of armed men. Using his skills, Bryan eliminates every threat except for Marco. He searches every bedroom. Tragically, he discovers Amanda's lifeless body, seemingly from a drug overdose, and the bodies of numerous other women. Bryan resorts to using electricity as a form of torture to force Marco to reveal Kim's whereabouts. Marco confesses that Kim has been sold to a man named St. Clair. Bryan reaches out to Jean-Claude for assistance. Jean-Claude agrees to help and provides Bryan with police records revealing St. Clair's possible location. Bryan confronts Jean-Claude, Jean-Claude pulls out a gun and points it at Bryan. Bryan challenges him, pointing out that sitting at a desk for too long has made him blind to the weight difference between a loaded and unloaded gun. Bryan tosses a handful of bullets onto the dining room table, taking control of the situation. Bryan takes his own gun and wounds Isabelle, Jean-Claude's wife, in the arm. Jean-Claude divulges where Kim is likely to be found. Bryan then pistol whips Jean-Claude to the floor. Assuming Jean-Claude's identity once again, Bryan gains entry to a secret party hosted by Clair. Bryan discovers a dark room with a glass wall. Disturbingly, a young, drugged woman and her handler are on the stage. Each bidder presses a red button to place an offer, and once the bidding stops, the woman is taken away. Bryan poses as a waiter and gains entry to the room. He points his gun at the highest bidder, demanding that they outbid the competition to win Kim. However, the situation takes a dangerous turn when the buyer holds a gun to Bryan's head. The scene freezes momentarily, and Bryan seizes the opportunity. He shoots the buyer in the head, freeing himself from the immediate threat. Bryan fights his way through guards and confronts Clair, who tries to negotiate. Bryan ends his life with a gunshot. With little time left, Bryan sends the elevator to the celebration floor and races to the river. Bryan drives a stolen car against traffic to reach the dock where Kim and other women are being transported. Kim is held at knife point. Bryan engages in a fierce struggle, ultimately shooting the Sheik in the head. Bryan is reunited with Kim, and they return home, where Lenore expresses gratitude and embraces Bryan. Bryan takes Kim to a lavish mansion. Shira opens the door, revealing a person playing the piano inside. Kim, who aspires to be a singer, is taken aback. Taken, released in 2009. Directed by Pierre Morel, produced on a budget of approximately $25 million. The concept for the film was developed by French filmmaker Luc Besson, who also co-wrote the screenplay. The success of Taken led to the creation of a franchise with 2 sequels, Taken 2 and Taken 3. Taken marked a directorial breakthrough for Pierre Morel, who previously worked as a cinematographer and second unit director. The success of Taken in the international market highlighted the growing demand for action films with a global appeal. It paved the way for more international collaborations and productions that catered to a diverse audience. Please subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next recap.